Good morning and welcome to Fujitsu Troubleshooting and Resources. This is the last day of this session of Webinar Wednesdays. So thank you guys for joining us. It is exactly 7:01 now, so we're going to get started. You got myself here, Rick Coster, and the man behind the scenes this morning is going to be Jim DePalma. So any questions you guys have, feel free to reach out on your side, on your little panel there. You should have a questions section there. Throw anything you want, as we go through this, questions that we feel, we want to review, we're going to stop and pause throughout and be able to answer those questions for you. Today's really going to be, obviously, troubleshooting is a big thing, in any product line, right? So we try to do the best we can with tech support. Wales Darby alone, we got 5 of us, like I said, myself, Jim DePalma, we got Rob Clemens, John Resso, and Anthony Tassi. So, the 5 of us alone spent a lot of time with this product line and the troubleshooting with you guys. So we just want to show you today some of the resources you have so you're not sitting on hold. That's probably the complaint we get the most is, I had to sit on hold for 2 hours, an hour and a half, 3 hours, whatever the case is, when there's absolutely no need for that. So hopefully today, after this, we're going to finish up here, probably about 8:30. You guys will understand where these resources are to help you be more self-sufficient, right? So let's just make sure we get this. If you can also throw in a chat box, let us know that you can hear us. We want to make sure you guys are getting all the information we're throwing out there today. Just make sure I'm open here. I am not seeing. Let's see. Always a little bit of technical issues. I'm just going to stop.
Good, Rick.
Are you seeing my slides advance? Because I'm not.
At the moment, no.
Okay. Good, we got audio. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. Let me just stop sharing real quick. We're gonna reshare this. All right, let's see. All right, love when technical things happen first thing in the morning. All right, let me pause this real quick. End that slideshow. I'm gonna start it again. It's funny how you get on here nice and early, you start this back and forth a couple times, and you want it to work, just doesn't wanna. Let's see. Had this going great 5 minutes ago. All right, let me escape that. Looks like I got 2 of them going at the same time. So we're going to get rid of that guy. All right, now we got it. All right, you guys should be able to see that screen at this point. Let's see. Perfect. So I'm gonna start that camera again. All right, so you guys should be able to see that now. Jim, just give me a heads up. Let me know we see this stuff. Yeah, Keith, you're right. Gremlin's always fun.
Yep.
Jarrell, thank you. Appreciate it. So today we're going to cover the Fujitsu portal. We're going to go through all the resources. So we're going to start with the portal. I'm going to give you some tips there, some stuff we've learned in the recent. Maybe it'll help you guys get off that phone line a little bit quicker. So I think that's real important, especially learning it this late in the game. It's something that I don't think we were all aware of. So we're going to learn some tips there, see some of the resources you got within the portal itself. Then we're going to go into Zendesk. And, most of the time I ask, are you on Zendesk? As soon as somebody tells me I'm on hold for 2 hours or I'm having trouble, doing tech support, I always ask. And that's the one question I always get, what is Zendesk? Well, it's a platform we've been on for almost 4 years now, and it's probably your one source, that you should really get familiar with, because this is going to help you, 9 times out of 10, it's the one source that you guys are really waiting on hold to get. This is the info that the guys, and the tech support team at Fujitsu, this is the information they're giving you is right off of this page. So I think that'll be really big for you. Then we're going to go through the rest of the resources we have, the apps. We have a couple, new ones out there, new, maybe a year old. and then the ones you're familiar with, the mobile technician and some other stuff. So those will be those helpful resources. And then what I really want to do is go through some common error codes and complaints. So I kind of put together a top 3, 2 error codes that we would see in the field. The third might be a complaint. So we're going to work our way through that, and then we'll wrap up, right afterwards. If you guys haven't seen, you have a handout section there as well in your control panel. We left you today with a lot of information. So we got in the top left here, we got the Fujitsu's, the Zendesk platform. So that's got the website and a little good information there. Then next to it there, we have the apps. So there's a nice piece, QR codes. So whether you have an Android or you have a Apple phone, you have the QR codes there to get the 3 apps that we currently use. Bottom right there, we got our troubleshooting guide. So apps are great as long as you have phone service sometimes. So the paper version of things is really, a need sometimes. So we got that there, and we'll look at that. And then the service tips in the top right. So this is, you don't have phone service, you can't get the Zendesk, you can't get to the portal. Well, the service tips are your paper version. It's going to list all the major components we're going to go through later on this morning and show you how to test them. So there's no reason to wait for somebody to give you the readings you need when you have, basically everything at your fingertips. And then finally, you got the Wales Darby line sheet there. It's going to list all the manufacturers that we represent. So these are all manufacturers that we typically do technical support with. So we're pretty good at that. You're going to find on the back if you're looking to get in touch with one of us, right? So you'll have our contacts on the back side of that. Look for the contractor services group, and you'll find the 5 of us there, as well as Jimmy Fry, our leader of the department. So with that, we're going to get started. Like I said, we're going to do a little portal review, and I think it's good. We say review, but there's always new stuff every single time, even for us when we're on here. You got to review this almost daily, if you're working with it, because there's so much new stuff that they're adding, almost hourly. So it's really good for us. So if you're not currently on the portal, there's 2 ways for you to get there. You can go directly to the website, portal.fujitsugeneral.com. That's probably the easiest way. It's going to get you right to the sign-in page. If you don't have a portal, you'll have the ability to click the Register Now button. You want to put in your email twice that you're going to use. The company email works great. You don't want to, if you're doing this for your company and you have multiple guys, one tip I'm going to give you is don't use an email like service at, myhvaccompany.com or whatever, because if you give that same email, if you have 10 guys logged into this or registered on a portal and you send all 10 guys to training and they use the same email, only one guy is going to get credit. So you want to use individual emails there. So you can see there's some tabs here between contractor tools, my documents, and we're going to go through a couple of them. We're not going to go through every one of them for time's sake here, but I'm going to give you the important ones. So if we clicked on, the other way to get there would be fujitsugeneral.com, our main website. You're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. You're going to click that contractor toolbox login, and that'll get you directly there. I get some guys that tell me I've had a portal maybe 5-10 years ago. I don't even know the password. That's fine. You have a button there as well to kind of recover your password or your login information. If you're having a hard time with it, reach out to one of us and we'll be able to get in there and kind of help you out. At least give you some hints on what your username was from there. Once you're in and you click that contractor tools button, you're going to get into basically a screenshot of your company. So you're going to see a couple things here, and I took this from a contractor and covered up some info here, but you're going to see your company info there, your address and all of that stuff, phone numbers. You're going to see, there's a lot of information here you didn't see on the main screen, like registering an installation on the top right-hand side here. We have, how the contractor rankings work. So if you go down towards the middle there, you'll see Halcyon Air Stage contractor rankings, and then to the right, unitary. That's what moves you up or down the leads list, right? So when homeowners are coming to our website, the Fujitsu General, and they're looking for service or new installations, based on how many installations, or we'll start left to right, based on how many training points, you got the blue little cap there. Let me see if I can get a little laser pointer here. This might help out a little bit better. Laser pointer, there we go. So we got the little blue cap. We have the little red condenser. So that's going to be our registered installations to date. So everything from this time last year to now, how many units have you installed and registered? So until you start registering the equipment, we're kind of like a ghost to Fujitsu. When they go to look at up your company and see what you're doing, you might buy 50 units. If you've never registered those 50 units, we have no idea. We can't track that. Everything to the right here is going to be your lifetime. So over the lifetime of since you registered with the portal, you're going to have all of those installations there. So that's nice if you're in the field and you forgot to grab a serial number and you left the job and it's an hour away. Do I got to go back and get the numbers? No. If I registered it, I can click in my lifetime warrant installations, look for that address, and I'll have all my serial information there as well, which is really nice. The big tip here is, when you're calling in for tech support, is your cell phone number in the portal. And if you look down at the bottom here, these are all of the users. You're going to have a phone spot and a cell phone. So this is the only way that Fujitsu knows. If you're an elite contractor, right, you get this special VIP queue, which is going to get you to tech support a little bit quicker than maybe somebody that's not elite. Right? There's homeowners that call, there's distributors that call, there's all kinds of people that call Fujitsu tech support, and based on their rankings and their number in the queue here or in their portal, that's going to basically decipher on who gets to the tech support agent first. So the one thing we've learned, and I'm going to put a little box over this, your cell phone number needs to be in that first spot, right? It says phone and cell phone. What we're finding, and I would probably do the same thing, under phone, most guys will put the company phone number. Under cell, they'll put their cell phone number. Well, what we've learned of recent is that the system, the phone system, we were under the assumption that it would take the cell phone number, and then when you call, it would register like a caller ID that this is John Smith calling. And he's an elite contractor working with ABC HVAC, but it only takes the first field. So that would be the phone field. So what I highly recommend is getting your cell phone number in both spots, okay? Because now when you do call, it'll register that. So that's something that we and Fujitsu have learned of recent. So this should cut down on a lot of those longer wait times, those 2 hour, 1 hour, wait times. So try that. Let us know how it works if your wait times are cut down. Hopefully after all of this, you don't have any wait times. So just a good point there. Looking at some of these other tabs, the real important ones here, there's 3 on the top right here. So my documents is another good one for you. Whether you're looking for a document, that you had in the paper format that we gave you in the service tips, and maybe it got all wet and ruined and you're looking for the PDF, I'll show you a couple places to find that. But when we click on that, that's like your little personal filing cabinet. So you're going to see here a bunch of different documents that pop up, or folders, I should say, from Air Stage Out Commercial, downloads, Fujitsu education videos, which you can kind of see here. Here's stuff on the portal in the toolbox. Here's your sales and marketing information for Halcyon, our residential line, as well as Unitary, our partnership there, our traditional split systems. Service and technical data, service bulletins, and service tips and disassembly. So when we click on one, and this morning I'm going to do the sales and marketing, when I click on that, it's going to give me a couple more folders here. And you can kind of see to the right here where it says docs, how many files are in that folder. So this could be information like here's how to properly size a mini split. So we got maybe a PDF there. We have the apps. You want to learn about strategic electrification. That's a big word these days. We have contract consumer financing, commercial financing, brochures and sell sheets. We're going to click on that. 62 files in this one folder. So this is all your literature. This is all your sell sheets, your brochures. Here's your 2021 full line catalog, right? So I did not throw that in there. I only got room for 5 files to get in there this morning. So, you guys want that 2021 new catalog. It's not in print at this current moment. It's coming out, I think, in the next month or so. You have the PDF version right here, a low res and a spreadsheet version. So you can go there and download it. If you didn't have the 2020, you also have that down here below, as well as all these other brochures. So you have these at your fingertips. If you had to send something to a homeowner, you don't have the paper version, well, you get their email, you come up here and download it and send it to them. There's no delay. The next big one for you guys is the parts, manuals, and tech data. So this is like your digital catalog. Anything current, anything retired, this is where you want to get to find all that information as far as manuals and stuff like that. So we click on that. You're going to see everything kind of layered here in colors, HVAC products. So that's our Halcyon residential in red, VRF in blue. If we scroll down, we might see some other product lines that we offer as well. So if I put in by model number, and let me go back to that real quick. If we look at the top, we have multiple ways we can search for equipment. We got keywords we can put in, even a part number. This is good if you get a part number from your supply house, you want to double check and make sure you got the right one. put in the part number, and it's going to tell you what equipment that part is good for. Confirm it before you drive 45 minutes back to the job to find out it's the wrong one. I know that never happens, but you never know. You can also search by accessories, system, and model number. So these are all another way where we can kind of hone into that piece of equipment, and then as well as clicking on the image of what we're looking for. So in this case, we're going to click on that multi-positional air handler. It's our favorite unit now. And then you're going to see the 4 models that we offer, and I can view each one. We're going to view the 24 here, and it's going to give me a little bit of information, some warranty information, give me some quick links, documents, accessories, and diagrams. So if I click on, if I scroll down a little bit too, here's all my info. So here's all my documents. So everything you need to know, everything that comes with the unit, maybe you lost the install manual, well, we got it here. Accessories, we're going to list whatever we can basically bolt onto this guy. And then you got all your parts diagrams. So this comes in handy when you're in the field. Again, you do all your troubleshooting on your own. You figure out what parts you need. Now you just need the part number so you can order it. Well, you can come here, click on a little circle for that part, and it's going to give you the description and part number. So another way to confirm we got the right stuff. Training, we love training. Obviously, you guys are up early, 7 in the morning. We had I did close to 100 people sign up this morning. So we obviously know people like to learn, right? So we do as well. So we have some online training here, by clicking on that. Fujitsu's done a great job. Jason Cruz and the team have been putting this together for a little while. And we got a nice, we got residential Halcyon up here we can click on. This Fujitsu HVAC subscription course is great for anybody in your company that's brand new. Maybe just learning air conditioning, just learning heating. It's not a Fujitsu specific class. It is a 1 year. Once you sign up for it, there is a fee. All right. So you can talk to your distributor about this. We can get that in your hands. And basically you got 1 year to complete this. This is like going to a trade school. They've teamed up with a company. It was HVACR EDU, which is a great, online training, company. It would cost you probably 10 times the amount it would here to do this thing in 1 year. So this is great. And you're going to learn everything from heat pumps to furnaces, electrical theory, all kinds of cool stuff. We have some controller training here that's coming soon. So we got some stuff. We'll just keep an eye on that because they're constantly throwing stuff in there. Air stage, we got some pinpoint learning, how-tos. So a lot of new stuff you can see coming soon. We're going to have mini games. I don't know what that means, but it sounds like fun. You're also going to be able to track this calendar here. Anything in green is going to be events that they're, maybe Fujitsu's doing webinars. We're not the only ones that do them, right? So you can go and click on one of these green boxes and see what class they're doing that day. It's a webinar. They're free to sign up and register, and you're good to go. What's nice too as a company owner, once you're on a portal, if you have guys doing this Fujitsu subscription course, you're able to kind of track their progress. If they're struggling in a certain area, you're able to see what they're doing. There's little tests and mini stuff that you can do to kind of track progress. And you'll be able to watch that as they go and maybe help them or reach out for extra help and stuff like that. So definitely some cool stuff there. And then finally, we're going to go through, there is a load calculator in here too, which is great. It's not a manual J, it's a room by room calculator. So if you're doing load calcs and stuff like that, or you're just sizing to make sure that the piece of equipment that was put in a room, maybe you didn't do the installation, you got a system not operating properly, well, do a quick load calc, make sure you got the right piece of equipment there. It's something you can show your homeowner or get to the office, show the boss, let him know so he can, let the homeowner know. But the load calculator is great. I've used it for everything, not just Fujitsu, doing, got to add some extra heat in a room, a new addition, that's a quick little calculator. I don't need to submit anything. So gets me some accurate numbers real quick. And then now we're going to go over some of the apps we have. And you can see there are links here, meaning that we can click on both of them and it's going to be computer friendly. I can do this right from a laptop, a tablet, or I can do it right from my phone. So Infinite Comfort Pro, or I'm sorry, we're going to start with an Infinite Support, which is out Zendesk. And if you're not coming in through the portal, you can go to it directly. It's its own little page you're going to register for, fujitsugeneral.zendesk.com. You guys have a handout there. Again, very organized. You're going to see we got these different tabs on the bottom here with remotes and accessories, Severe, Unitary, Halcyon, our residential, and then our air stage here. So this is the main page. Once we log in, we got a little search bar there. So if I'm looking for something specific, I don't want to go fumbling through all these tabs looking. Well, start typing in stuff and see what pops up. The other important one is, if you notice on the bottom right, this bright red support button. So this is another avenue for you guys to get to tech support, right? You don't want to pick up the phone. And again, I'm going to show you a way how I like to do, support, or how I like to do service calls. So we'll go over that towards the end. But I click that little support button. I'm going to get this "How can we help" button. This is where you want to, the minute you get to that job, start entering some information there. Once we know what our error code is and we're kind of moving forward, my name is John Smith. I'm with this company. Here's my phone number. Here's my email. Use some keywords like "I'm on site," not "I'm 30 minutes away sitting at the deli. I figured I'd call you now," right? Put in some keywords that are going to help, get to you quicker. So put the information, model numbers. This is the error code I have. I need help with troubleshooting, and done. Hit enter. That's going to go into queue, and now the next support agent that reviews it will get back to you based on the contact info that you left. Make sure you put the cell phone number. I'm famous for that. I always send Fujitsu messages, call me back, I'm on site, and I never give them a contact number, and I don't get a phone call back. So it's something you just kind of forget sometimes, but it's important for communication, right? So as we move forward here, we go to that halcyon that covers all of our residential products. This is what you guys are really waiting on hold to get to, right? So when we get to some, good troubleshooting info, you're going to see we got manuals here for both current and retired units. If you look at the bottom of that box, we got 100 articles there for retired units, 51 for current. There's still new stuff being thrown in here. So we got 151 articles or manuals right off the bat. We scroll down a little bit more, we're going to get to videos. So we got 7 videos here that Fujitsu's put together. Basically, how do I get the boards out of the unit and how do I put them back in? So if you're new and you're not doing this all the time, this is a great place to go. Watch these videos, get an understanding on how the wires get routed and how we disconnect things. Just some really good stuff there. Troubleshooting by error code, and this is what I'm saying is this is where we're waiting. We're waiting on hold for an hour and a half because we got a communication error. Well, if I click on that troubleshooting by error code, it's going to give me all the steps I need. These are all the steps that Fujitsu's reaching out, and we'll look at that in a second. So this is what they're giving you. And then we go down a little bit further, we're going to find service tips. Again, we gave you that PDF. Feel free to print that out. It is a color version, which is nice. But these are all the little individual articles for troubleshooting the individual pieces, of a Fujitsu system. Service bulletins to the right there, anything in this column, 22 articles. This is basically going to be anything that Fujitsu kind of finds over the years. So if we come across the unit that might give us a little bit of an issue, they find something in engineering or maybe during, when they built the unit that's kind of giving us hiccups, we kind of catch that in the field fairly quickly. When you guys have an issue, we're going to be there. We're going to want to see it. We'll communicate that back to Fujitsu. They're going to throw a bulletin together, figure out the fix, and to get it taken care of. And for a short time, that bulletin will sit in here. This way you guys know what to do if you come across that in the field. And they do a great job of getting those rectified. And then a little bit further down, we're going to have disassembly instructions. So this is great, especially when we're going through and we got to, we've never pulled apart a slim duct ARU model and I got to get to that drain pump. What screws do I need to remove? So we'll take a look at that in a second. So when we hit that manuals button, you're going to see there's a lot of information here. You might not know, I put on the left here kind of a little identifier, but we got our installation manuals, our IMs, OMs for operation, design and technical, service manuals, service instructions. We got diagrams, submittals, and a lot more. You can see to the right here, we got a master spec guide. I'm not sure what that is, but click on it and take a look. You can't break anything. When we click that troubleshooting by error code, again, this is exactly what you guys are waiting for. When you call tech support, what do I have to do? Well, here you go. Step 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pull disconnect for 5 minutes. Check to see if the error code reappears. It always reappears. I've never had a reset where the code just disappeared, right? It always comes back. So, what are the steps I got to take? Check voltage. Gives me some voltage numbers there. I got to be, in between to be friendly. Conduct a DC volt test. So, we'll blow this up a little bit more, but I'm missing a word there. Conduct a DC volt test to determine if the problem is coming from the outdoor unit, indoor unit, or the field wiring, right? So these are all the steps that you need to take to figure out why you have a communication error. Once we move down the line here and we kind of get through these tests and figure out maybe there's some board issues, right? Articles on troubleshooting boards and components can be found here. Each one of these little blue links here, or blue little sections, you click on each one, it's going to bring you directly to that part and how do I test it? Test it by voltage and test it by maybe resistance, right? So we'll look at that a little bit further in the morning here. Also, once we get all the way to the bottom of that, after I tested all the components, I figured out what boards need to be replaced. At the bottom, we're going to see here how-to videos can be found here. And then usually pertaining to the different equipment, single boards or multi-zones, you're going to find those videos right on the same page. So it's real nice, quick links, one page, and you kind of take care of everything. So this is probably one of my favorite pages to be on is the Zendesk. What I've started doing, guys kind of reach out to me. Hey, I got a problem. This is my error code, blah, blah, blah. What do I do? So I'll go in there and I'll click on troubleshoot by error code, and I'll hit the share button. I'll send them the link to that page on how to troubleshoot by error code, and they'll text me right back. Hey, it's asking me for login information. Yeah, you're right. It is. Register, register for this platform, and you can have the info that I have. So, yeah, good, Jim. Thank you, Ben. Yeah, absolutely. Zendesk is a website. It is a website, but it's a mobile-friendly website. So they did a great job of making this fit the mobile platform as well. So very easy to get to. Now, this is just a good example of disassembly. Like I said, not familiar with pulling apart these ARU models, right? Not sure how to pull all these screws out to get to that drain pump. Well, this is what's going to help you out, immensely. We go through this. What screws do I got to pull off to get to the bottom of the unit? Where are the screws? There's little notes here to remove the pump. First, take out the 4 screws. We got a little zip tie here with arrow pointing. We got to remove that, and then we can get that pump right out of there. So, and this is fully down. When we say disassembly, it's not just to access, one part. It's to access everything, to pull the coil out, pull the drain pumps out, fans, everything. So it's really good stuff. So moving forward here, this is the Infinite Comfort Pro app. I just got to stop real quick. I see Ray's asking, can you show how to get into that part of the portal? Yeah, so it's separate from the portal. So there's 2 ways you can actually go to the portal. So when you log into your portal, you're going to click on Infinite Support, or you can just go to fujitsugeneral.zendesk.com, and that's going to get you there directly. And you do have a PDF in your handouts, Ray, that's going to show you the website, and it'll get you in there too. And those pictures, yeah, they were in Zendesk. So Infinite Comfort Support or Comfort Pro app, this is something that was developed it was really developed, I believe, as a sales tool, where a salesman can go to the home, basically create a project, for a customer and have a materialist, a Fujitsu materialist that they can email themselves, complete it with all the accessories and send that off to the distributor to get quoted. And me being a service-oriented guy, I came out of the field for, quite a while. I'm always thinking, how can we use this stuff for service? So, myself and the rest of the contractor services, we kind of go through this with guys and look at it both ways. Here's the sales approach, here's the service approach, and it's very easy. You're looking at the desktop version. The mobile app version is almost identical. The tabs might be positioned different. I believe that actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I believe it is the same layout. So you got 3 tabs on the bottom here. We got projects, products, and settings, right? It can't get any easier than that. So, and you're going to primarily be in projects and products. So what I'm going to do is, you can see logging in for the first time. I got no information here, so we get a little welcome screen. What we're going to be looking at is this little plus sign up in the top right corner. So that's where we're going to add our first project. So I'm going to approach this as a sales point, and then I'll add in the service as we kind of go. It's going to take about a minute or 2. So basically what we're going to do, we hit that plus. I'm going to put in some details here. Who's my customer? Where's this job that I'm sizing up? Create a new project. Here's product details. If you notice, there's 1 star here for project name. That's the bare minimum information. So if I just want to put an address there, fine. Especially when you're doing it as a service side, this is where I'm at. This is the information we're plugging in there. So we put all that information in. We get to the bottom. We click on the Create Project button here. It's going to bring us back to this screen. It's going to have our details at the top, and we're going to click on Create a New System. So here we're going to have the option to either create a single zone, multi-zone at the top, or J series even as well. So, and if you're not doing J series, which is our light commercial, right, heavy residential line, this is what's replaced the 48, AOU 48, the branch box system. So If you're not doing this at all, you do have the ability in settings to kind of block this area out, so all you see is single and multi, so it gives you a little bit more room there, less confusion. But for time's sake today, we're just going to do single zone. We get to select the BTUs, the unit type, SEER, we don't have to fill out all of this, but it's going to give us, kind of hone in on the equipment we're looking for. When we get to multi-zone, it's just going to ask us how many zones do we want to do? 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever the case is. What's really nice about this is, if you guys remember in the catalog, we had the compatibility chart, which had all the little boxes. Might have got a little confusing. You look for the outdoor unit, you find your combination. Is this good? Can I add to it later on? What's going on here? Well, this kind of takes all of that guesswork out now. So when I put in 3 multi-zone or 3 zones here, and I want 3 indoor units, when I go to find a system, it's only going to give me the outdoor unit for that combination. So if that combination does not pop up, you can't have a mix match system here using this app, which is great, or this platform. So again, for time's sake, I put some information in here. I selected a 12,000 BTU capacity, wall type, mid-tier, so that's our 19 to 23 SEER equipment. And then I'm able to add line set length. And this is where it becomes, real important, first as a sales tool and then as a service, right? So maybe the system's already in place and I'm there as a service call for a complaint, comfort complaint maybe with no error codes. They're just not getting the cooling or heating that they thought they were going to get. Well, I can kind of recreate the system that's already there and confirm my line set lengths and stuff like that. So after I put all that information in, I hit Find Systems. And as you can see, our mid-tier system, ASU 12 RLF1, matched with an AOU 12 RLFW1, gives me some information here. The important part is down here, line set lengths within range. You get no, right? So that just checked and told us that at 8 foot selected, this is where I was putting the outdoor unit, this is where the indoor unit was. I have about 8 feet of line set. It's telling the salesperson right then and there, 8 feet is too short. Our minimum, if we look up, is 10 feet, a max is 66. So now I know, my sales guy knows, right, that I got to move that unit. Well, maybe there I'm on a service call and that's probably my issue. The customer's calling because they get a noise on the indoor unit every time this thing runs. That's the refrigerant rushing through the unit because the line sets are too short. Well, I can take this little app now, show my homeowner, look, we didn't install this, but this is your problem. Your line sets are too short. I got to move your outdoor unit 4 feet over. I got to find a way to coil up maybe horizontally a line set, get it out of the way so we can make up that additional length. I can hit the go back button here. Once I get in, there's a results. So when I hit back, I have the ability to change it. So I moved the outdoor unit 4 feet or extended the line set. And now I got a green box that tells me I'm good to go, right? So that's where I think this really comes in handy when you're checking those line set lengths. From here, I can hit save the system to project if that's the equipment I'm going to go with. And then I can I can also add some controls if I wanted to update some controls, which is really nice. The product side of it, let's say, I kind of go through the service side, right? Let's say I had to go over my pre-charge. In this case, for this model is 49 feet. Right? Maybe that's the comfort complaint. We're at 59 feet. We're 10 feet over and they're not getting the cooling they want. We installed the unit last week. Well, now I can come there, rebuild this system, put my 59 feet in. I know I'm over pre-charge because it's showing me here it's 49. Well, I got to add refrigerant. Did the install guys do it? Well, let's get them on the phone. Hey, did you guys add in refrigerant to the system? No, we didn't. We didn't have to. Well, yeah, you did. How much do I got to put in? Well, I plug the AOU 12 RLFW1 in here, right? It's going to pull up some details. There's a 12 RLFW1. It's going to give me my line set specs. It's also going to give me my additional refrigerant. How much do I got to put in per foot? So I went over 10 feet. I got to do 10 times 0.21. That's 2.1 ounces. I weigh in my 2.1 ounces. My complaint goes away and I can move on, right? So great ways, and of course, this is awesome when you have phone service, or you have your tablet service. We do have it in paper format, right? Troubleshooting guide, which we'll look at in 2 seconds and in a few minutes there. So we'll have that information in paper as well. We also have the breaker size. So a lot of good specs here in the product section. When we hit that settings, the last tab there, we got some good stuff here. We're able, I don't know if you guys do your own installations and you register the equipment right in the field, or you do it, you hand that paperwork back to the office. Well, you know what, the office is really bogged down and not able to get those registrations done. As long as you have a picture of that invoice, I can hit that product registration in the app, start that process, upload the picture that's on my phone, put the customer's information in, and done. In less than 5 minutes, that product's registered before you even walked off the job site. You know, really easy to do. We get some notifications here, view recent notifications. So anytime Fujitsu adds something to their systems, they're going to throw that in there as well. Keep you guys alert on all new and upcoming stuff. And then for the installers out there or the service guys, you know, view torque settings. So we got the chart there. This is not a Fujitsu chart. This is a standard flare nut, you know, chart that's going to tell you your torque settings. So it's good to have that resource as well. Maybe you didn't have it before, you lost the install manual. Well, you can always get that information from there. The Fujitsu General Mobile Technician app is something that's been along for, man, I can't tell you. I used this when I was in the field. I still use it when you guys call me and I'm in the car, you know, like the rest of the contractor services. This is our first initial go-to. Throw that error code in there. We can select the model you're working on. Top right there, we can see where is that error code coming from. So the information that you give to us, we're going to plug that in, and the system's going to generate a PDF based on that error code, give you some symptoms, give you some troubleshooting tips, and hopefully that hones in on the problem. But it's a good way to start. We typically, myself, I know I take a screenshot of this and I'll send it right out to you. You know, so this is stuff that you guys have. You know, there's no reason for me to have to go do that while I'm in the car. If you have the time to call me, you have the time to open up the app and plug in the information. You know, we want to hear from you so we can collect your information, create a ticket, and have some sort of communication. God forbid we have an issue in the future, we had some sort of communication. So we always want to talk to you, but a lot of this stuff can be taken care of. You know, there's no reason for you to call us just to do tech support. You also have the ability to check the misters here. So this is, I guess, before they change the settings to Fahrenheit. So that's something you definitely have to do once you download it, is change it to Fahrenheit and PSI, right? So we have some pressure sensors there. We have PT charts. We do have some additions here to the residential and the VRF line. We have Wi-Fi and stuff like that if you have an Android phone, so you can do some Wi-Fi troubleshooting as well. I think we're all familiar with Zoom. Today we're on GoToWebinar, but Zoom has been a huge resource for us, you know, especially with, you know, webinars and training and meetings and everything else. You know, a year ago, nobody knew what this was, maybe a little more than a year ago, but Zoom has been around for a long time. Fujitsu's been using it for multiple years. It's really been helpful when they use it right. You know, we have the Zoom platform for them. Basically, you guys are in the field, you need help, you need another set of eyes on it. Well, in the past, you guys would call in Wales Derby, you would set up a job site visit, maybe through Fujitsu. It took a couple days for us in our schedule. So now your homeowner's waiting with no heat, no cooling, whatever the case is. Well, you have the ability to just give us a shout, you know, give Fujitsu a shout. Say you need to do a Zoom session or a video conference, you know. They have the equipment, you know, right now they're currently from home, so it might be a little tough, but they have information they can share like we do as far as maybe bulletins, wiring diagrams. Maybe we have some boards in front of us, you know, we're always doing training, so we have access to that. We could kind of show you what you should be seeing and what you are seeing, you know, so it might be two different things. So Zoom has been great. You know, if you need to do that and you need, instead of waiting for a job site visit, give us a call. If we can jump on a quick 15-minute Zoom call and solve your problem and you not have to reschedule that, I mean, that's huge. We're always trying to save you guys time. So we know how important that is. And then here we go with the paper versions. So we got our troubleshooting guide. So again, the mobile technician's great, got some good info there. The Infant Comfort Pro app, a lot of good info in that, digital. You need service for that most of the time. If you don't have that service, here's that little pamphlet, that little troubleshooting guide. We open up the back 2 pages and we're going to have all our current models, pre-charge amount you can see here based on model on the left or system, pre-charge length. So for this amount of refrigerant that comes from the factory, I can go this far. My max length for the whole system, additional refrigerant I got to weigh in if I go over the pre-charge, and then your minimum lengths that we have to maintain. So, you know, again, all great information in paper format. We always get that one person, hey, what if I have no cell phone service? You know, the area I work in, it's always horrible. Well, it's horrible service, but it's always good enough to call us, right? So a lot of times we have the resources, we got to use them. You know, yep, phone service stinks sometimes, but we got paper, right? So you guys have access to all of that stuff. So with that, how we doing, Jim? We got any questions coming through?
Nope, you are clean right now, sir.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, so now we're going to get into some of the troubleshooting. Like I said, we got about 2 error codes here that we commonly see. Yeah, there's other codes that do pop up, but these seem to be the most common. So we're going to go through 2 of them, and then a little complaint thing I throw in there as well. So before we start troubleshooting, all troubleshooting starts with a good multimeter, maybe 2. If one's not working properly or we're not getting great readings, do you have a backup meter? Right? If you don't, this is a good, if you're using your phone today or you got your tablet, take a picture of this, take a screenshot. This is what my multimeter needs to be able to do. Volts AC, at least 500, DC, 600, ohms, at least 6 mega ohms. Got to be able to do a diode check. And more importantly, that meter has to have good batteries. If I asked you today what kind of batteries are in your meter, I can guarantee a large majority of us don't know what size batteries are even in our meter. So I know they've never been changed. So it's very important to have good batteries because some of these readings like the diode check, that's going to utilize your batteries. That's taking the voltage from your batteries and going through the components and giving us a reading. So if the batteries are not good, these are some of the issues we could have. Love working from home, get the dog and everything. The Zoom link, that's just zoom.us. You can even Google that and pop it up or look in your app store, you'll be able to get that. So thanks, Jim. So one of the most common we always get is serial communication signal error, right? So what is a serial communication? What is a serial signal? So if you're not familiar with serial signals, it's basically pulses of electrical data, which are used to communicate between indoor and outdoor. So depending on which way that communication is going, typically we say our indoor unit to outdoor unit is our forward signal. That's where our command comes from, right? Indoor unit collects data, sends it to the outdoor unit and tells it what to do. So that's your forward signal. The outdoor unit sends information back to the indoor unit. That's going to be your reverse signal. So it makes it nice and easy. So sometimes you get that error. Sometimes you might get a forward signal error or a reverse. A lot of times it's just a serial communication error. So then we have to figure out which way is it coming from. And that's where we start here. So we want to start with it and verifying our wires are good. These are some of those checkpoints. Make sure there's no breaks in the wire, right? We want to verify that communication between the indoor and the outdoor unit. See where that problem's coming from. And then we can start, troubleshooting and at least find that source. Again, we always like to have those wires direct. We don't like splices, junction box, wire nuts, anything that's in between that communication from terminal to terminal. It's just another way to, basically, if you have a junction box you had to add, that's just another hiccup in the line that can potentially give you a service call. Once we confirm the wires are good, we find that problem, we find there's no communication coming out of that outdoor unit, then we can get into steps 3 and 4 and start verifying individual components like the diode bridge, the filter module, stuff like that. So if you don't find communication coming from the indoor unit, right? If it's outdoors doing good, we got some communication there, but it's not coming from the indoor. So we got to make sure definitely those wires are good, like we just said. Make sure there's no boxes and stuff like that, but also check for a condensate pump. Right. So condensate pumps in general, we do see them time and time again. And typically we're going to use the alarm contacts on that pump to break out number 3 wire, right? So that positive serial signal going through from outdoor to indoor, if that pump fails, it's going to open up those contacts and we're not going to get communication to the head unit. And that's what's going to give us that serial communication error. So always check if that's an error you come across, just take a look at that indoor unit, make sure there's no pump in line there, and then we can go forward, at least especially after confirming the wires. This is something that, Fujitsu put in. This was Artie DeMartinez, he turned us on to this. This is something I love. I put this slide in every training we do. I never thought of it, that's why I like it so much. So, do you ohm out your wires before you install them? He ran into a situation where he did an installation, and unfortunately, after it was all done, he thought he was good, ready to go home. He fires this thing up and he's got a communication error. Drove him nuts, checked his wires, everything was clean, pulled the wires off, went and checked, did a continuity check, black to black, red to red, white to white, ground to ground. He ended up having a broken wire right out of the roll, right? So now he brings his multimeter into a Home Depot, wherever he's getting his wire, and he physically checks it there. I guess brings a pair of strippers in, whatever he does, just to get contact. But, strip those spools. Whether you're using a 250-foot spool, you're using a, Romex like this, a 50-foot coil, strip it out and double check it, make sure it's good before we start running it through a house and sealing everything up. So that's definitely a good tip there. I like stuff I don't think of, love to learn. So outdoor boards, this is just a good example of, the configuration. If you're not sure what all the components are, right? The power supply board to the right there, diode bridge up top, a little black chip. We got an inverter power module, or IPM. It's like our contactor. If you're familiar with unitary systems, we have a contactor that sends power to the fan and compressor. Well, this sends power right to our compressor. It's in fact 6 switches, right? And we'll look at that a little bit deeper and how to test that. And then to the left there, you got your active filter module. We got a little thermistor down here. So get comfortable with understanding what all these little components are, where they're located. We got a little EMI filter here, so pay attention to what wires that is on. Just all good stuff here. If you're not, sure where everything is and you're having a hard time locating, especially if you're on a phone with tech support, take that front door you removed, right? Flip it over. On the back side, you're going to find a great schematic here, right? And just start to identify some of the parts and pieces. What are these? They tell me to look for an active filter module. What does that look like? Okay, well, if I blow this up a little bit and I see, hey, okay, there's the active filter module they're looking for. All right, yeah, there's a plug in there. Oh, there's that EMI filter. Oh, it's a yellow and blue wire, a white and brown, and a red and black. Well, find that little box that has all of those wires in it, and there's your active filter module, right? So same thing with, okay, I know where my compressor is. I don't know what the IPM is. Well, there's my compressor terminals. What do we got? We got RST. It comes back to the board as UVW. If I look on that board in that general location, I should see a UVW on the board. That's going to be right next to my IPM. So if you get comfortable with locating the parts and pieces and what they're called and where they're plugged into, that's going to cut down troubleshooting time in more than half, I would say. So anytime we're accessing the PCBs or the printed circuit boards, any type of component that has electric going to it, we want to shut off that disconnect, wait 10 minutes for those capacitors to completely discharge. If you happen to be working in a quiet area, you might hear the click of the unit. You'll hear those discharges, the capacitors discharge themselves. I always like to take a multimeter, especially in my territory. I'm in a city. There's no way in hell I'm going to hear that thing click. But if I put a multimeter on my incoming power, I'm going to watch that power drain. So sometimes it's less than 10 minutes, but you don't want to take a chance. I always wait at least 10 minutes just to be sure. DC voltage is not something you want to play with. AC voltage, we've all been hit once or twice, maybe more than that. But typically when you get a shock from AC, it kind of throws you away. DC is the opposite. DC wants to hug you. It wants to be your friend, right? So you get hit with that and you're by yourself, you can be in some trouble there. So first component, we checked the wires. The wires seem to be good. We got no communication coming out of the outdoor unit. And this could be from a power outage. This could be from a couple different things. This could be just, I'll mention it early here, and we're going to mention it at the end here, but it could be a bad grounding system in a home, right? So what I typically like to do is if I can get familiar with testing all the components in a Fujitsu outdoor unit, whether I don't care what the error code is, if I can just quickly go through the entire system and make sure everything is good, if I can do that in less than 20 minutes or 20 minutes to a half an hour, that's going to save me so much time. I'm going to get so good at, testing all these components and knowing what a good reading is and what a good reading isn't, and when something maybe is, being problematic. So that's why we like going through all the components, and that's why we're just going to run through that, kind of quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. We have a good class coming up, a teardown class. I think that's Tuesday, right? So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But locate that diode. If you look at the service tip on the right here, this is what you guys have in your handouts. It's going to show you some other locations on other models, and then I'm going to get my readings left and right. So I got 2 different tests I got to perform. The big thing, and I'll say this a couple times as we move forward, is yeah, we got a multimeter that could do the test, but I'm not paying attention to what terminals my meter leads are on, right? So we got to look at that chart here. You want to read this over good before we even take that multimeter and place it over here. So we want to know where do our multimeter leads have to be, what's the reading I'm looking for, what am I checking, diodes, can my meter do diode? This is the logo for a diode, basically an electrical check valve. This is going to make sure, follow the arrow, electric can pass this way, left to right, it can't go right to left. So if I'm confirming, that this check valve works good, I should have voltage, right? Good batteries. I'm going to take the voltage from the batteries, go through it one way. I should see that voltage. If I go back the other way, I shouldn't see anything. That tells me my check valve is good. So that's what I'm looking for. So your diode bridge is really the heart. This is where everything begins. We take our AC power from our main power board coming in from the panel. We go through this little piece. The two center guys, that's your AC voltage, right? So we put our AC in here, and on the back side or flanking the AC is going to be our DC voltage. So your diode bridge converts AC to DC volts. That's our communication, right? Pulses of DC. Well, if this chip is bad, I don't have communication. So it's as simple as that. One tip here, we're going to look at, I believe it's IPM next. If this diode fails my test here, well, that's one test I don't have to do now, is check my IPM, right? Because I already know that this chip is bad and I got to replace this board and the IPM is on the board. Well, I just saved myself a couple minutes there, and you'll look at the next slide here. Yep, IPM. Here's your transistors, right? So this is the chip. This is our IPM. It's or our contactor. Like if you think about it as a traditional system, here's your UVW. So as we're on a schematic, right? This is our wires going to our compressor. P and N. So those were our yellow and blue wires that came from the active filter module, right? So that's an easy one. Now let me go back 1 second. So inside this chip, most of your contactors you're used to, they're 2-pole, right? Maybe if you're doing 3-phase work, you got, a 3-pole contactor. Well, this is 6 switches, right? So there's 6 transistors in here that are opening and closing. So based on the speed that we open and close them and which ones we do, we simulate 3-phase power, DC power to the compressor. And that's what's gonna, by varying that frequency, that's how we're able to change or adjust the capacity of the unit that we need. So that's what's going on in there, and that's what we're checking. We're just making sure those windings are good because they are going to the compressor. We just want to make sure those switches are good and able to handle the voltage. So unless we had a big power outage there, typically your IPM is going to be pretty robust. You're not going to have too many issues there. The active filter module, the little black box you'll typically see in the unit there. Some models have them, some don't. When we get into the real high efficiency stuff, like was the RLS3, it's now the LZAS models. They found a way to increase the efficiency. We get to that 33 SEER by removing this component out of the system. They've taken this technology and kind of built it into the board. So a little bit different. But again, really the purpose of this slide is not to confuse you and make your head hurt right here, but when we're going through these tests, again, it's all about making sure I know where my multimeter needs to be placed, what terminals am I looking to hit, and what are my readings that I'm trying to achieve. If you look, and then that's why I like this slide, is if you pay attention to all of these readings, they're all totally different. 360,000 ohms, 0, 720,000. We got mega now. We got back to 360. We're looking for infinity. We're looking, these readings are changing constantly. So if I just get set on moving my multimeter and my leads, and I'm not going back to my meter and changing my range, even if you have a auto ranging meter, we really need to pay attention to what our meter is telling us. Because the one thing I always like to say when we do these teardown trainings and we're testing boards hands-on, I always get into not an argument, it's a friendly argument, usually 15, 20 minutes long, but, when you get a reading and you tell me it's 0.06, well, is it 0.06 or is it 6,000 ohms? When a tech agent is asking you for a reading and you tell them, yeah, I got 0.06, they're not there to decipher your reading. They're just there to take the information you're giving them, check a chart, okay, that's out of range, here's a part number. So if I'm giving them bad information based off of my meter and I don't know what I'm reading, well, that might be you getting a new part that you didn't need. So this is why hopefully this helps you, just pay attention. And another tip I'll give you is write all your readings down, put them on a piece of paper, write them neatly so we can read them. But as you're taking the readings there, if we go through the whole system and we figure out what parts and pieces are bad, circle the ones that are bad, you get in touch with us as you're on the way to the supply house, or maybe that's when Fujitsu gets you on the phone, they call you back after you're done testing and you're already driving to the supply house. You really just need us and need Fujitsu to confirm, hey, these are the readings I took. You know, I believe these 3 parts are bad. Well, now either Fujitsu or ourselves, we can check the warranty quick and say, okay, you know what, that unit's under warranty. Your active filter module and your fan motor were bad. Okay, well, let's change that main communication board as well, just in case. So that's where you're going to get that extra info, that confirmation, maybe even the part numbers you need. You get your ticket number, you can move on. You're already done troubleshooting. You're already on your way to get the part, and you're not waiting 3-4 hours like I've heard in the past. So that's how we become self-sufficient, is by understanding how to do this stuff together. Before we get into this, do we have some questions here? I see some stuff streaming, Jim.
Well, I've been answering them. A couple of guys were asking again about Zoom and how to use Zoom or why to use Zoom.
Okay.
And then another gentleman asked or made a statement that when he's on the job, they'll tell you to change all 3 boards. And you basically just answered that.
Yep.
Like all the time when he's on the job, you have to change all 3 boards. And you basically answered that, by what you just mentioned.
Yeah.
If you're not sure what you're looking at and you're looking for Fujitsu to give all the information, they're just going to tell you to change all the boards because they need to get moving.
Yeah, and a lot of times too, keep in mind, they know you're under a time crunch too, but you got to think of it as think of you being that tech agent on the other phone. Think about how many phone calls that tech agent gets from guys all day long that their meters aren't sufficient, right? They're getting bad information, right? They're not getting the info. We can listen to them. That's one of the nice things about what they consider us light agent, they call it. We can kind of hear the conversations you guys are having with tech support. So when they're going through and, you're not on site, but you want troubleshooting help. Your multimeter is not giving you good readings. It's 20 years old. The batteries haven't been changed. You just want part numbers so you can move on, right? So they kind of get lazy too at some points and just, change all 3 boards. Well, if the fan motor was bad, well, that doesn't help you. You didn't diagnose the fan motor. You went and changed the 3 boards. We blame it on Fujitsu because that's what they told us to do, but we didn't do the due diligence and test everything, right? So now you go back, you change the 3 boards, you got the same error code, the board's burnt out again because that fan motor was bad and it just keeps burning out the board. Well, we got to take the time, we got to test all this stuff out. Zoom, why do we use Zoom? Zoom's just another resource. If I need a job site visit, I'm really banging my head up against the wall and I can't, hone in on this problem. I've changed a couple components, I really can't get any further. Well, before we get out there on a job site, we're not saying we're not going to come out and help you, but if we can get on a Zoom call, and basically it's pretty simple, it's a free download, and I can touch on it again towards the end, but you can go to the website and download it to your phone, or go to your app store and just search Zoom, and it's going to pop up. You download the app, it's free, you register. And basically what's going to happen is you get us on the phone and we're going to say, hey, listen, let's jump on a Zoom call. Let me see what you're looking at. I give you my information, which is nothing more than like my phone number and a password. You join that session. We can both see and talk to each other face to face. You can put your camera up against the unit or show me what you got going on. Maybe you got a wire out of place and I catch it or Jim catches it because we look at this stuff all the time and it helps you out a little bit. So that's the purpose of Zoom. So if we can't see what we need to see, and then maybe we say, all right, you know what, let's just try and get out there and do that Zoom session, it'll be better. So we're gonna move forward here, hit that next component, the outdoor fan motor, like I was just talking about. Sometimes we got some hidden things here. We did the 3 boards, but that fan motor was bad to begin with, and that's what caused the bad board. We don't want to just change parts because that could be the problem. We want to really figure out what's good and what's bad. So our outdoor fan motor, get a little bit of noise there. If anybody's unmuted, Jim, can we just mute them? Outdoor fan motor, ohm testing. So again, this is a service bulletin. This is a nice chart. It's going to give us all our outdoor models. We have one for indoor models as well, but we want to confirm what model we're working with. If I zoom in a little bit here, I'm going to take a 24 multi-zone system. This is an H model, right? So this is the extra low temperature heating model. And basically what this is going to tell me is, all right, here's my wire colors. I can see them here to the left, red and black. I'm going to start with. doesn't really matter. We're checking resistance, so polarity doesn't make a difference here. We're going to check the 2, and I should be between 300,000 and OL. I see, Ben, you had down there, you have an auto meter, right? So it's auto ranging. So auto ranging can be good. It might not be good. It really depends on the multimeter and you understanding the readings you're getting. And that's where I say, if I have a selectable meter like you see here on the screen, this I have to actually dial in at a range a little bit higher than the reading I'm expecting. So if I have, in this case, it looks like it's a little hard to see here, but it looks like it starts 4,000 or 400, 4,000, looks like 41K, something, 40K. So if I'm looking for 300,000 ohms, I want, or OL, so anything higher than 300,000 ohms. So if I set my multimeter to 400,000 ohms, right, and it comes up as 300, yeah, I'm going to see 300. If it goes above it, I'm going to get OL. I know that reading is above 300,000. We're good to go, right? But if I have an auto ranging meter that's going to kind of do its own thing, it might actually, move and give me a decimal reading. And that's where I was saying, this is where if you're not understanding of what that decimal means, it might go to a mega scale, right? So it might auto range to a mega scale. So I might read it as 0.3 something, let's say 350,000 ohms. I might see 0.350. When I talk to tech support, the answer is not 0.350. The answer is 350,000 ohms, right? So if I just tell the guy 0.350, he doesn't, his job isn't to say, okay, yeah, he must have that multimeter that auto ranges and he's telling me 350, so I'm going to say it's probably 350,000, not 0.35, right? Some tech agents, they might not have as much patience as we do, so you tell them 0.35, they're going to, nope, it's supposed to be 300,000. You got 0.35, that's a bad part, get a fan motor. Well, you get a fan motor, you put it in, you get the same problem. Right? So it's really understanding your multimeter. And a lot of this has nothing to do with the product itself. It's understanding your multimeter, just like anything else, is what's going to help you, test bad components. And then we're just going to move down the line: white to black, yellow to black, blue to black, confirm them. If one reading is bad, that's it. If my first reading comes up as 100,000 ohms, my job's done. I got one bad reading here. Do I want to get comfortable and just start testing them all so I can see what the good values are? If I have one bad winding, that's it. I need a new part. So we can kind of save some time once we start to understand this and get comfortable doing it. Sometimes we got to test voltage, right? So I like resistance. It keeps me out of trouble a lot of times, keeps me from getting zapped. So, but once in a while, we do got to check voltage coming out of the unit. So this is a great slide. When we're talking testing DC components, you look at the bottom of the page here, we're looking for DC grounds, or, not, earth grounds. It looks like a spade shovel. DC grounds, the icon or the logo is going to look like a brush. I think of brushless motors are usually DC, right? So I need to find a DC ground. So whenever we're testing anything in this system, whether it's an expansion valve, a thermistor, we're checking for voltage, I need to identify a ground. There's multiple ones around the board, but if I know where my fan motor is, and looking down here where I got my laser pointer here, at the front edge of the board, you're going to see my fan connection. Here it's blown up for you. The easiest way I can remember this for DC ground is you see to the right there, we got one solder terminal for the first, then we always going to have a blank, so there's going to be a missing solder joint or maybe two. So depending on how many you have, the next terminal next to the blank, whether it's one or two blanks, that's going to be your DC ground all the time, right? So we can see in the schematic view here at the bottom, one is our solder point. We have a missing 2, and 3 now becomes my DC ground. So if I put my negative meter lead on that DC ground, I can literally take my positive lead and go to my thermistors, my expansion valves, my fan motor, anything that's DC, and I can test for voltage. So that's just a great reference point there. We go over this a lot in our electrical trainings, which we'll do again coming up later, I think early next week. So definitely some good stuff there. And then finally, we got our compressor, right? So that's our next major component. Very easy to check. So we want to have a good meter with at least, I think I said 6 mega ohms, right? So we want to be able to test these terminals and make sure, or these windings, make sure they are solid. Typically compressors, we have not a lot of issues with compressors unless we have some big voltage issues going on there. But unlike a scroll compressor where we're going to have some different readings depending on the windings we're checking, with us, we're going to go UV, UW, VW. They all need to equal the same, right? So they all have to be the same. We're going to also check that resistance from terminal to ground. So that's another big thing. We need to disconnect those wires at the compressor. Make sure there's no added resistance there. So, or maybe shorts from wires that are giving us false readings. So disconnect those terminals. Take a picture before you do so. You know, obviously, disconnects off there on the right-hand side. So we don't want to have power coming in. And then we go from there. And then our last couple components here, expansion valves, right? So we're going to see them in a couple different locations. We're going to have usually our A valve on a multi-zone is going to be in the front right. That goes directly from the board down to the bottom of the unit. If you were going to, you know, carry one of these parts on your truck, you know, we have a 5 and 6 wire expansion valve. The A valve is the one you want to carry because that's the only one that's going to go from the bottom of the unit all the way to the top of the board. The rest of the ones, if we look at the schematic, you can notice here, this is my A valve. The wires go from the motor, meaning the expansion valve motor here, all the way up to the board. If you notice these, I have a Molex plug. That's what this is telling us. We got a Molex plug in between the board and the valve. So these are shorter harnesses. So if I had an A valve, a 5 and a 6, I can potentially replace almost everything out there in the field. So it's not a bad way to deal with it, especially if I had maybe a multi-zone system and one valve's bad. If I have an empty port, I have the potential to use that as a extra part, maybe to fix it for the night until I can get an additional valve installed. So just a little tip there. But basically your expansion valve is made up of 4 coils. So depending on which way we want that metering device to open or close, we're going to power those little 4 individual coils in certain, you know, orientations so that it does open and close. It just spins on that post. And that's what's going to modulate that refrigerant going to the indoor unit. When we do that, you can see here from the service tip, you know, we're looking, no matter if it's a 5 or a 6 wire here, 5-pin, 6-pin, we're always looking for the same reading. We're looking for about 46 ohms, plus minus 4 ohms between each coil there. And if you see the reference here, that's at 68 degrees. So if you have a slightly higher or lower number, depending on the temperature where you're working, you know, don't be alarmed. If it's not 46 ohms and it's up at 45 ohms, it's at 50 ohms, you know, whatever the case is, as long as they're all within 4 ohms, all 4 coils, typically you're going to have a good valve there. So just a little tip. And then I believe finally here we got the misters. So we can do this with the mobile technician. We can do this. I like using the troubleshooting guide, right? So this is the back side of the troubleshooting guide. It's going to list our indoor thermistors here. You notice all Halcyon products, we only have 2 thermistors inside, but there's 2 different configurations. We have room temperature and pipe, indoor pipe thermistor with and without board. So one of them is on a Molex plug. We can disconnect from the board. The other 2 look like Molex plugs. They're in separate spots on a board. You cannot unplug them. If you do succeed and you pull them off the board, unfortunately, you just bought yourself a new board. Right? So they were not meant to come off. So those are just the 2 differences with and without board. And then you'll see everything to the right here is all our outdoor thermistors. So if we get comfortable with just checking them, it's the same process, just different readings. So if we're using the app, we want to make sure we're selecting the right thermistor. We can enter that information in. It'll tell us based on temperature, which you see here in the color-coded area on the left, that temperature and resistance need to correlate. If they don't, we might have a bad thermistor. So if we had and you can see here, this is an outdoor thermistor. This is our yellow. If we look up at the board here where my pointer is, that's the discharge thermistor. We're going to ohm that out. We're going to get a reading. It's going to tell us the temperature, 77 degrees. If it's not 77 degrees or within 10% of 77 degrees and 51,000 ohms, you know, we might have an issue. Might be getting some false data, and that's why the unit won't run properly. So some good stuff there. All right, so we changed all the boards last year, and they're bad again. So that's something I've heard a couple times. You know, we keep constantly having to do boards, right? So we've done multiple boards, and they just keep coming back. You know, what causes board failure? You know, well, maybe the first guy that did it, he didn't really use the paste. You know, he didn't tighten it down all the way. You know, any air gap that's there, and then if you see here, we got that aluminum heat sink right here. Aluminum is very porous, and that's the purpose of the paste, is to fill in all the little holes. If you looked under a microscope, it's going to look like craters on the surface. If we don't put enough paste in there and fill in all those holes, we're going to have an air gap, and air is an insulator. So we're going to generate a lot of heat with our component here. If it doesn't transfer through this aluminum and again dissipate that heat from the component, it could fail that board, and then we have multiple boards failing, and we're constantly going back. We can also have a bad grounding system. You know, your ground might be great. All the work you did was fine. We got good solid wires from indoor to outdoor. But if I have a bad, you know, especially where we are in Long Island, you know, or near the shore, you know, you got grounding rods in sand basically, and all that salt and everything else in the air, it eats them up, you know, and sometimes within a year or so, a couple years, so maybe we don't have enough, you know, the electrician only put one grounding rod where that soil or that ground needed multiples, right? So if there's not a good ground, and if you're changing boards constantly, you know, whether it's a commercial building or residential home, recommend an electrician. You know, it's beyond you at that point, but we definitely have to have that electrical system tested and make sure, you know, we got a good ground going on. And then when I say, is there enough airflow? If you look at that heat sink, there's these little fins down here. We need air to go through there, you know, especially the coil. If the coil is getting all dirty, if I don't have airflow going through that unit, and this is usually located just above our fan, if that coil is dirty and I'm not pulling enough airflow through, yeah, I'm decreasing cooling and heating and all of that stuff, but I'm also dissipating how much air is going across that heat sink, and we're not pulling the heat away from the component, and that can fail too. So this is a maintenance item we should be looking at every year. You know, we kill that power to the unit, pull the front grill off, clean our outdoor coil, but look up, you know, make sure you brush out those aluminum fins. Usually find, you know, spiders and everything else, grass clippings get all caught up in their webs inside there. So we want to make sure those are all clear. How we looking? That's the first one. So we're gonna hit the next one now. Look like we're doing a good time here. See some questions. You guys seem to be knocking them out. So
Hey, Ricky, did you ever use a phase monitor on a job?
Yeah, they have phase monitors and stuff like that. With this, I don't think you're going to use that because, yeah, like I said, it's a simulated 3-phase, but this is a little different. It's simulated 3-phase. So I don't know if a phase monitor, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if that would be, if that would work with our system. But they make, you know, meg meters and stuff like that for testing compressors. You know, those I've seen guys use, but I don't know about a phase monitor. It's a good question though. I'd have to find out and get back to you, Tim. I like hearing stuff that I've never heard before. Cool. All right, so then we'll keep going here. We'll look at the next one. So discharge temperature error. This is another common one, you know, and unfortunately, a lot of the times this could be refrigerant related. So typically you're going to see this with a 10-in-1 flash, you know, on an indoor unit, or possibly an A1 error if we have a wired remote control. Basically what that means is we're protecting the system because our discharge temperature went above 230 degrees. So if it does that within two times of a 24-hour period, or twice within a 24-hour period is what I want to say, you know, it's going to throw this error code. So it is a resettable error code. So if I do reset the system and that error code, you know, we do our 10 minutes, right? We shut off the disconnect. I wait a couple minutes, wait for that thing to, you know, discharge those capacitors again. If the error comes back immediately, right, then we know most likely it's something with either the board or the thermistor itself. So we want to test that discharge thermistor like we did before, went through the whole system, right? So I can kind of, if I know it's this error, I can go directly to the discharge thermistor, which was that yellow plug underneath. We ohm it out. We check out 51,000 ohms. It's 77 degrees out. Okay, so I know the thermistor is good, right? If I'm not within that 10%, you know, this thermistor, you know, it could be just giving us a bad, you know, reading. It could tell us, you know, it's 77 out, but it's giving me, it's telling the board it's 120 out. So now as we do generate some temperature, it goes above 230 and we get an error code, right? So that's what we want to confirm, is that that thermistor is reading properly. We also, if it's ohming out good, then we want to check voltage, right? So we find that DC ground on our fan motor, we power it up. We check our voltage going into the thermistor, make sure we're getting our 5 volts. All our thermistors are powered with 5 volts DC. Maybe I'm not getting the proper voltage going into the thermistor, and that's why it's giving me a bad reading. So we just want to confirm the two, replace the part that's bad, and we should be good to go. If the error code clears up, right, it goes away when you repower up the system, we need to check the refrigerant charge, because this is going to be the same thing. When our compressor is running and we don't have enough refrigerant in the system to cool that compressor properly, that discharge temp is going to rise, excuse me. So when we go above that 230 twice in a 24-hour period, it's going to shut off the system, give us an error code. This could go on multiple times, throughout the season before the homeowner catches it, right? Because if it does it within the 24 hours and it's reset, or maybe we hit set point before it hits that second time, we might not even see the error code. It might only happen once. So refrigerant charge plays a big play in this. How do we check that? We're going to set all units to 64 degrees, high fan and cooling. We're going to push the test run button on a remote control. If the remote doesn't have it, then we're going to go to the indoor unit. We're going to open up that filter cover, and to the right, or I'm sorry, to the left of the electrical connections, you're usually going to have that manual button. We're going to hold that button in for about 10 seconds. That's going to give us 2 flashing lights on the head unit to confirm that you'll get the same 2 lights if you hit it on a remote control. We want to do that to each individual unit if it's a multi-zone system. That's going to put us into test run. We want to observe the system for about 15 minutes, watch the system run, and we should sit about 125 PSI. Right? If I'm not sitting at 125 PSI and the fan's running full out, outdoor fan, I mean, compressor's not running all out, right? Then we might have some refrigerant issues. And I would say we probably do if the error code cleared up when you repowered up the system on that error. Is most likely a refrigerant issue. So what you're going to see is that gauge number 1 is going to start going up and down. You're going to hear the fan cutting out. It's just going to be the compressor running because it's trying to compensate and boost the pressure by getting rid of airflow. And when you start to hear that and see that operation, you know right away we got a refrigerant issue. We got to now evacuate the system, pull everything out, pressure test it, find the leak, and repair it. The other way we can check refrigerant charge too, if the system's been off for a little while, take a look at your gauge, hook it up, take a look at your pressure. If we look at the pink area here for 410A, right, outstanding pressure is going to correlate to, your temperature here. That's going to be your ambient temperature for the most part. So especially with mini splits, doesn't work real good with traditional split systems, but with mini splits being in the living space, our temperature differences from outdoor to indoors isn't really that high. So we're going to be fairly accurate here, at least to kind of get an idea. But if it's 70 degrees out, or let's say 60 degrees out here, I should be a little bit, maybe about 165 PSI, right? So on a 60-degree day, we follow the 60 degrees. And this just like a PT chart. We can use the mobile technician for this as well. Enter in your 60 degrees. It's going to tell me a pressure. If I'm not close to that pressure, if I'm down here on a 60-degree day, I'm low on charge, right? So that tells me right off the bat. So it's a real easy way to check. If the system's below 110 PSI while it's running, right, it's time to do a leak check. We want to make sure that that thing's working properly. And this is going to get us into our last one, insufficient cooling or heating. So we get this a lot. This can be brand new. This can be the first day of the installation or a couple days after. We get a couple complaints that we're just not cooling an individual room. Or maybe this happens 2-3 years down the road, where we just get one unit that just stopped cooling, especially with a multi-zone system. So when we look at, a typical install, a typical room, one room never cools or heats properly. We got lack of humidity removal. Is it a bad thermistor? How do we fix this, right? So if everything worked fine for years and this problem just started coming up and it's just one unit that they're having an issue with, there's a couple different things we can look at. And it all goes back to thermistors, expansion valve. We're getting good at ohming this stuff out so we can move through it pretty quickly. But basically you're on the left to right here, we got our 2-way, 3-way valve thermistors. So these are in the outdoor unit. They're calculating our superheat and subcooling, right? So if they're off and they're telling me bad readings and they're sensing temperatures coming back that are wrong, they're gonna maybe shut down this expansion valve and stop putting refrigerant into the indoor unit. If one of maybe my pipe thermistor is giving me a bad reading. I had one recently. Guys replaced multiple parts, even the whole outdoor unit, and still couldn't get the outdoor unit to come on. Pipe thermistor, cheap little part. Pipe thermistor was telling the outdoor unit it was 138 degrees inside. It wasn't. It was about 30 degrees inside. So that thermistor was telling the coil, basically the outdoor unit, that my coil's hot. I don't need any more refrigerant. Don't turn on. So in that case, just changing a thermistor solved the problems, right? So just ohming them out is going to get you a long way, save a lot of time. So we just want to make sure. If that problem was right after the install, so the install crew went in there, they installed everything, everything's great, have a nice day. Next day, you get a complaint. Last night, that one room upstairs, it didn't cool. There's still a lot of humidity. 3, 4, 5 guys go to a job. We get this a lot. That's why we're talking about it today. And typically it's going to be in a room like this where we got a 10-foot wall in front of that indoor unit, right? So the biggest problem with this is we blow that air. These are powerful units. The 7 and 9's not as far, but when we get into 12s, it might throw air 29, 30 feet away, right? So I got a wall that's 10 feet long. That air is going to come out, hit that wall, bounce right back to the top. It's going to hit this little air thermistor in the top of the unit. And yeah, the room's 80 degrees, but I got 64-degree air. Well, maybe I got 50-degree air coming back. My set point 64. It's going to shut the system down, and I'm not going to pull humidity out, and I'm not going to cool it properly. So this is a big complaint. We typically we oversize, and we talk about this a lot. We oversize Fujitsu systems all the time. A lot of it is not our fault because we only go down to a 7,000 BTU unit, right? So that could be an issue. So that's where these load calcs are really important to understand how many BTUs we really need and size that equipment properly. So sometimes it could be a component, but sometimes it could be, maybe it's a thermistor. We have the ability with function codes, and this is a function code chart out of an installation manual, but we basically have the ability to change and alter how that thermistor, that air thermistor here is reading. So if I'm hitting cold air here and I want this thing to run longer, I have the ability 8 degrees back and forth, and some charts might look different. They only have 2 or 3 settings, but they're basically settings in 4-degree increments. So it'll still get you to 8 degrees of correction. But I have the ability to drop a little bit lower. Maybe I need, 6 degrees of correction. It'll keep this unit running a lot longer and cool and remove the humidity out of the system, or out of that room. So that's definitely, something to look at. And unfortunately, if we're not familiar with function codes or understanding on how we can alter a system or basically make a good system better, right? Maybe we have that short wall or that ceiling fan that's here, blocking the air or hitting, reflecting that airflow back into the unit. I had one the other day in Long Beach where they had a decorative plate installed in front of the unit. That's going to reflect that temperature back. And sometimes if they're not going to move things, we can make some adjustments and really make this thing work properly. So function codes are huge. Another function code we get, on the same kind of comfort complaint, we get it with ducted ARU systems. We get poor airflow problems. If we have poor airflow, we're not cooling the space, we're not pulling the humidity out, we're just not performing properly. So all ducted systems out of the box are not set up for ductwork. They're set up for an air filter that we provide that's bolted on the unit, basically. That's all that unit knows to overcome is that air filter. So if I start putting 2 or 3, 20-foot runs on this thing, I need to tell the machine how much duct work I need, or I need to overcome. So we need to know how to design the system properly. We need to know basically the pressure drop of the system and the restriction I need to overcome. So if I design the system and I know I got, 60 feet of total pipe, I got 90s, I got grills, I got return filter, I got to add up all those restrictions and then basically go into the function settings here. And you can see the black diamond down here at 0.10. That's all the system can overcome is 0.10 inches of static pressure. So if I have 0.2, I added everything up and I'm at about 0.2 inches of water column, that's my friction loss. I need to make a function setting of maybe it's 0.24, 0.28, which would give us a 6 or a 7. Until I do that, my fan's never going to ramp up enough to overcome that restriction, right? So we know that we show up to a job, just like the last function code and the last problem where we're not cooling properly. You guys might go there 4 or 5 times. You're not familiar with function codes. The homeowner's lost faith. They're not happy. They just spent a lot of money and they have a room that's not cooling. We show up and we look into function codes and boom, we change something. We're in the door for 30 seconds. The system's fixed. The customer probably doesn't have a lot of faith. This is something you should have known, especially when we ask for the installation manual, and that's where we're going to get that reference from, right? So you guys had it in your hands, but we didn't use it. So hopefully, if you didn't know about function codes, take a look in your installation manual. They're specific to the model you're working on. So just get to know them, what's available, what can make your installation better. If you're not sure, give us a call. Okay, we got a Tech 101 tomorrow and a ETSD on Tuesday. So, you know, a lot of good info there. Hopefully you guys can find that for you, you know, make these jobs better. And it's just showing you another version of it, the same function code 26. You'll notice down here, and that's why I left this slide in here, was, you know, the smaller units, anything from 9 to 18, we have available 0.36 inches of static. You would think going to the larger 2-ton, 24,000 BTU unit, we would get more static. It's actually the opposite. We only have about 0.20 inches available. So we got to be careful, make sure we're designing that ductwork properly. If you're not familiar with designing ductwork for an ARU system, we have 4 nice little modules on the online training that'll walk you through how to actually design ductwork, how to calculate all of that fun stuff. So take advantage of that. You'll really enjoy that. And again, this is all found in the installation and design and technical manual. So before we wrap up here, I was having a little fun. We were talking about, yep, Daniel, you got about 5 minutes, man, not even. So we want to have a little bit of fun here because I know we have a lot of, yeah, we get those complaints. I've been on hold for an hour. I said it in the beginning, there's no reason for it. So, a typical call, you guys pull up, right? Nice new truck. And I'm going to challenge you guys that, we like having fun with these PowerPoints. If you guys have a truck that's all wrapped with the Fujitsu logo, send it to me. You'll have my email at the end here. I'll throw you in the PowerPoint and get rid of this yellow truck. I just couldn't find any good wraps, good vehicles there. So with your permission, I'll gladly do that. But we typically pull up, we see our Fujitsu unit, we confirm our error codes, figure out, what we have, is it a communication error? Okay, yeah, I got a 1-in-1 flash for communication error. Then I get on the phone immediately. My tools aren't even out of the truck yet. We call tech support. Maybe they are because you pulled the unit apart. And we get Jeff, right? Please hold. Thank you for holding. Please hold, right? So this is what happens a lot of the times, and there's no reason. After today, we shouldn't have this no more, right? This should not be the typical service call. The typical service call should really be something like this. We figure out the problem. Immediately, we get on Zendesk, right? I get to that support button. I plug in my information here, who I am, how to get in touch with me. I'm on site. This is my problem. Let them call you back. From there, we just provide it. It's in your handout section. We get communication error. There's my list from Zendesk. I got my service tips. I got my troubleshooting guide. I got 2 apps. I got the portal, right? How many more? I don't know if there's any more resources we can throw out there. There are. You can call us, right? So you call Wales Darby directly, or you got your distributor TSA. If you don't know who your distributor TSA is, and maybe you don't know what a TSA is to begin with, basically we are TSAs. Myself, Jim, Rob, Anthony, John. This is what we do. We're technical service advisors, right? So you call up with a problem, we're going to help you out. Well, your distributor should have a TSA on staff as well. If you don't know who that is, call them up and ask them. Find out who that person is. Sometimes, like this morning, Jim and I, we're in training. You got a problem first thing this morning. Unfortunately, we got to wait until we get off, and then we'll get in touch with you. If you don't have time, that's another resource. So definitely use them. They're there. I hear this all the time, and this is my response. If you have 2 hours to wait on hold, sitting there in the driveway, then you have the 2 hours to use the resources, right? So if we know where they are after today, hopefully this helps you a lot more. We're just going to review here. We got 2 websites, right? Portal and Zendesk. We got 3 apps: the Mobile Technician, the Infinite Comfort, the Zoom video conferencing. We gave you 2 handouts there, the paper handouts. So those are the service tips and troubleshooting guide. I got 3 phone numbers here. So we got Fujitsu. So you got the basically the nation number, the 866, and then you got the local New Jersey 973 number. They both go to the same place. It doesn't make a difference. But that's going to be your tech support numbers. Your distributor TSA, if you don't know who it is, like I just said, give them a call and give the distributor a call and find out, get that number. And then you got Wales Darby, New York and New Jersey numbers there, and then so with all of this information and all these different resources, there's no reason we can't get through a service call in a timely fashion, right? Save some time on your side, your customer will be happy, your boss will be happy, and then we can move on from there. So I hope this was a big help for you guys today. If you, got on here late or you haven't seen our past webinars, I don't know how many we're at this point. We got to count them and see where we're at. But we have our HVACinsiders.com website, all the recordings, everything that we've done. You're going to find all of that here. You're also going to find our training schedule. So we have a couple that are left. We have somebody, this is just a copy of what we had. Here's our final one down here, April 7th, Fujitsu Troubleshooting and Resources. We did just start we're 3 in already. We started our Fujitsu training series, so that's been going great. We have start that again tomorrow, so that's 8 a.m. Get to the HVAC Insiders page and sign up for that. And we got a bunch more coming for you as well. So with that, do we have any questions? Anything up there, Jim, you want to talk about?
Rick, you covered it all, my friend. Excellent job.
Yeah, I see Jacob.
Don't say anything open.
Yeah, I see Jacob there. Getting high discharge temp code and heating. Yeah, you could. You possibly could. You know, again, it's all refrigerant. You know, that refrigerant still has to cool that compressor in both modes. So if you are, most likely it's a lack of refrigerant, you know, or it could be, you know, the thermistor itself. So we look at it both ways. You know, if we reset it and that temperature error goes away, most likely it's going to be a refrigerant error. You know, if it comes back immediately, that's when we're going to get into that thermistor. Yeah, no, it's awesome. Glad that helped you guys. Appreciate the comments. Again, you got our emails there. I think I was the Tosti's email there. I guess I thought he was my backup today, or I didn't change it. So he's a good guy to email. You got us there. So take a screenshot. You got my email. If you have any questions about today, please feel free to throw it out there. You know, yeah, 7 to 8. Yeah, we kind of go over sometimes too there, Dan. We like to give you as much information as we can. If you can join us, great. If you need to watch it again later on, please, you know, hit all those different webinars we've been doing. So, all right, with that, I don't see anything else coming through. So I'm going to say thank you guys. We will see you next week. We have, actually, we'll see you tomorrow. We got, like I said, what is Jim, tomorrow's Tech 101?
Tomorrow's Tech 101, Rob Clemens and myself. That's a long one, guys. That will be from 8 to noon.
Very good. Yep, I'll go back for you there, Darius. There you go. There you go. So you got mine. We also got our emails too in our handouts in the Wales Derby line sheet. So if you want to download that, if you haven't already, you have all of our emails. So you have access there as well. Give you 2 seconds there, and then we'll say goodbye. All right, with that, you got it, buddy. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day.